Okay, hi everyone. This is going to be an update on the Daybell case. Last week they had a lot of really good, interesting witnesses on the stand. The prosecution is still calling their witnesses. They had Tammy's sister and Tammy's brother in law on the stand giving their testimony. And it was so hard. And then a lot of Tammy's friends that, people she'd worked with for years, people who knew her for like a very, very long time. And everybody was testifying to how healthy she was, and she was great. And they were all shocked because they saw her Friday, and then Friday night, early Saturday morning, she supposedly dies from this mysterious illness that her husband is saying occurred. She had a coughing fit, and then she died. And what woke him up, his story is what woke him up is that she rolled out of the bed and hit the floor, and he got up and then found she was dead and already in rigor. Yeah. Sorry, dead people don't move. But anyway, the testimony of her sister was so hard to listen to. And they also went through the autopsies of the children this week. Oh, I feel really bad for that jury. I mean, people in the medical field, and when you work in an emergency room and on an ambulance, you tend to get a little, I don't know, hardened. You see this stuff all the time. You're like, yeah, it's hard to see it, but oh, what they did to these children, especially her daughter. I guess she was still 16. I said she was 17. She was going to be 17 just like a couple weeks or the next week or something. She died relatively close to her 17th birthday. So I guess legally she was still 16. But they dismembered and burnt her body. The coroner, the medical examiner, I should say, not the coroner, when the medical examiner received her body, it came in multiple bags. She was clearly dismembered. They didn't find all of her bones. They did find her heart and lungs, which were and they were burnt, and they called it charred, burnt and charred and shrunken. And they said the forensic medical examiner said that her heart was roughly 1/3 the size it should have been. They only got one kidney. They got her vertebra, almost her entire spine, her pelvis area, some of her skull, but the rest of her, they don't know where it is. And again, dismembered. And then they also testified that they found tools in Chad's shed, one being a pickaxe, one a spade, and a shovel. And they found Tylee's DNA on the pickaxe and on one of the shovels. I'm not sure if it was the spade or the shovel. It was horrible. Horrible. And then, of course, I understand the defense. Pryor's got to try to defend his client as best he can. But, he gets up there going, but there's no DNA of Chad at all on any of this stuff. And couldn't somebody have, taken these tools and done this without his knowledge? And it's like, Chad was a seasoned gravedigger. He knew to wear gloves, and it's not out of the realm of possibility. I mean, it probably was second nature for him. Anytime he took tools out, he's got gloves on his hands, and if he has gloves, he's not going to be leaving DNA transfer. But anyway, I mean, where the position of the children's burial sites were on his property were in direct eyesight, in the line of eyesight to the room above his garage. He had a garage and they had a room built on top, or somebody had built a room up there. And from that window in that room, you could see where the children were buried. So, and he spent time, I guess, up there, and his son spent time in that room. So you cannot convince me, Mr. Pryor. And I know he doesn't listen to this, but still, it's like, oh, you can't convince me he didn't know those children were buried there. It took a long time. And the hole that was dug, that JJ, the little 7-year-old, the autistic boy, the hole was over 2 feet deep, and then they had to cut through roots of a tree. So that took time to dig that hole. And, again, you have a professional grave digger, and then he's going to try to just say it was his mistress and her brother that did all this, and he didn't know. and the interesting thing is that Chad had written a text to his wife. Now, all of his texts that they could find within a certain time frame were very short. Coming home, leaving work, very short things, going to the store, that type of thing. Well, then this particular date, which was the day after Tylee was last seen, September 8th, I think it was 2018, and September 9th, 2018, Chad decides to write this really long text to Tammy. Found a raccoon out by the back fence. I went and I got my gun and I shot it, and burning a bunch of leaves, and now I buried it in the pet cemetery. I mean, he just went on and on. And Tammy just responded, "Good for you." I mean, she responded like she normally did. She didn't know. And after the 8th, on the 9th, he's doing this, admittedly, in the burn pit. And he said he buried a raccoon. Now, and keep in mind that when the FBI was out there, digging and going layer by layer, they did find animal bones, but it was bones of a dog and a cat and a squirrel. They never found a raccoon. They did find Tylee. So I think now they finally have enough to prove this guy's guilt. At least I'm hoping that, because there's so much to prove Chad is guilty of this, and he killed his wife. He's trying to blame her death on natural causes, that, oh no, she was sick and she was treating herself with herbs and, essential oils, and it killed her. This is the thing. I think that every single criminal that has had the wherewithal to kill somebody, especially children, or a spouse when they're sleeping, you are gutless wonders. You don't mind, and you think you are all bad and all that while you're killing somebody innocent and smaller than you. But when it comes time to pay the piper and fess up to what you did, you run like a little bitch. Yeah. There are there are some serial killers and people out there that will admit what they did. They're like, yeah, I did it. Don't let me out. I'll do it again. Now, what they do is wrong, but at least they can admit what they've done. Instead, Chad is trying to blame everything on his goddess wife, right? He called her a goddess, and, oh, we were married in other lives, and now he's thrown her under the bus so many times. I wish Lori was watching this, but she's so delusional. She probably thinks, oh, he's just doing that to save himself because he's God. This is how sick and twisted these people are. But yeah, anyway, I could go on a tangent of this story for a very, very, very long time. But it was really good to hear, especially from Tammy's sister, Samantha. And I mean, it was sad because she just broke down so many times on the stand, and your heart just breaks for her. She misses her sister and somebody they trusted for over 25 years killed their sister. Everybody in the family trusted him. Everybody in their church thought he was a good guy. And, well, why they thought he was a good guy, I don't know. Because it seems to be a pattern where he has had multiple affairs. And I'm sorry if a guy's having affairs left and right, or a woman. I don't care who you are. If you have a spouse that's committing adultery, you're not a good person. So it's not, but it is, I guess, kind of a bigger step to go from having affairs to actually killing your spouse. I mean, I don't know. But he's a wiener of a person. I mean, you just look at him and it's disgusting. You're just like, ooh, how. And again, Lori was a beautiful woman. And she had this, Charles, who she was married to, was a real man. He was like a man's man. He was very athletic. He was, you know, nothing wimpy about him at all. And you look at Chad, and I don't know if any of you are old enough to remember the commercial where it's the wimpy cinch sack. Remember the trash bag commercial? And that's what Chad reminds me of. He's just this lump of flesh that sits at a table. And I'm like, but yet, and still, there were so many women that fell for him. I still think Melanie Gibb had a thing for Chad. I still think, what was her name? The one that was writing the books. If you're watching the trial, you'll know who I'm talking about. She had a thing for him. Although she tries to say she turned Chad down, she says that Chad made passes at her. And I believe he did. I think he made a pass at anything and everybody, because he just thought he was so much better than what he was. And he used to complain about Tammy and their life together. And the brother-in-law made the comment that Chad had said to him that he wasn't happy with his marital life with Tammy because it was too vanilla. And that's why it was so much better with Lori. And it's like, okay, you have Tammy, who wasn't that experienced. If she was experienced at all when she met Chad, and then they had 5 children, their children were finally getting older and married, and they were having children of their own. So she was finally getting to a point in her life where she could really learn to be herself and learn who she was. So she was working out, she was taking dance classes, clogging classes, and she was just trying to get in shape to be so she could feel better about herself. And then you have this jerk off of a husband who pulled this on her and then kills her to be with this other woman who'd been married multiple times. Now, I can't speak. I mean, I've been married multiple times. I mean, I'm single now and will remain single. End of story. Been down that road, don't want to go down that road again. But so I'm not judging how many times she's been married, but I'm saying she was very well experienced. And so, of course, she's probably going to know things and do things that Tammy probably had no idea about. She was raised to be a good girl, so to speak. And yeah, it's insulting because at her funeral, Chad is telling everybody at the funeral of Tammy that she was lazy, she was overweight. I mean, who does that? Yeah, you learn a lot about this guy. But it'll be interesting to see what Pryor does to try to defend this guy. I just don't, I don't see anything they can do to defend him. But I'm glad to see, though, that the prosecution is finally starting to connect some dots, because they, put a lot of information out, but then never really reiterated the important stuff. Like, they brought in the FBI agents and the forensic specialists that talk about the children. But then Pryor goes back and say, but he shot a raccoon. Now, my first thought is, on redirect, I would go to that specialist and say, please remind the jury what bones were found in that pet cemetery. But they don't do anything like that, and I don't understand it. I don't know if the jury's keeping up with everything. I hope they are. Now, if you follow Nate Eaton on East Idaho News, he covers, because he's there in the courtroom, and he was saying, especially when they were showing the photos of JJ and Tylee after they were found, well, what was left of Tylee and of JJ's body during the autopsy, that there were several jurors that were just in tears. They were just crying. So I'm pretty sure it was pretty horrific. But yeah, anyway, this next week should be interesting, because they ended on Friday with can't remember what her name was, but she was going over comparing the things that Chad was writing in his supposed fictional novel, and comparing what happened in that story with what Chad and Lori were proven to have done in real life. Because Pryor has been, the defense attorney Pryor, has been trying to convince everybody in the jury that Chad was just taking literary license. He was taking artistic license and making things up, and he was just writing stories. Well, when his story says that James and Elena, James being Chad, Elena being Lori, went to the temple and were sealed. And then in real life, they match it with the same time frame and everything, where Chad and Lori went to the temple and got sealed. And, they met at this thing and she was selling his books and he just fell madly in love. Well, then in real life, she met him at one of his conferences, started selling his books, and that's the day they fell in love. So these are the things that they're comparing right now, and it will continue on Monday. So I really I don't know how Pryor is going to try to, talk his way out of that one. He's got his hands full. And I know a lot of people, and maybe I should give the guys some more slack, but I mean, I understand everybody deserves a good defense, but when you know someone is guilty, and it's obvious someone is guilty, why are you wasting everybody's money? And clearly, I mean, in a situation like this, I went and I shot a raccoon, I'm burning branches, and I buried this thing in the pet cemetery. There is no raccoon out there. There were no branches burnt, but you find a burnt child's body. Again, Chad is not the brightest bulb in the box. And as far as I know, Lori still is in her little la-la land thinking that they're going to be, set free through some portal somewhere, and Jesus is her husband. I don't know. The woman's crazy. I mean, not in the literal sense crazy. She knows what she did. She knows she's, attuned to time and place and what she did. She just thinks what she did was okay. And if you watched her trial, you would know that several people testified to where Lori would say something or something would be done and she'd go, "Doesn't count for me." Just like that. "Doesn't count for me." Well, they explained what that meant in Chad's trial. Chad was teaching that if you are translated in a previous world, so from whatever part you were and you're translated now and you are now an exalted being in another world, you can do anything you want here and it will not be counted against you. So Lori was like, whatever she did, she goes, "That doesn't count for me. I'm not guilty of any of that because I was translated in that other world. I'm sinless. I can do anything I want." That's the mindset that, these courts are dealing with. So it's been really, really interesting. So I will keep you guys up to date again with more, notes under the community section. And so anytime anything good happens, I'll type it in and hopefully maybe next weekend. Hopefully this will be the last week of prosecution. We don't know how many more witnesses they have. I think they've had close to 60 or a little bit over 60 witnesses testify so far. And so they've got to be getting close to wrapping up. But then again, the defense will present their witnesses, and then I do believe that the prosecution will be able to rebut one time, and then it's over. But we could still be looking at another 4 or 5 weeks of this trial. If Chad were anything of a halfway decent human being, he would just have taken a plea deal. He would admit guilt and stop the charade. The grandparents and of these children have had to sit back and listen, and Tammy's family listen to the horrific details of their autopsies, photos being shown of their autopsies, and that POS just sits there like a damn lump on a log, staring at the evidence, not even moved. He's just like this. I kid you not. Doesn't budge. He just stares. If it has something to do with him, like they'll be talking, mention his name, and he's like this. And then that's it. No emotion, no thought, no care in the world. So, oh, and then no, I was watching It's a Crime. If you guys have not been watching It's a Crime, Linda did a really good recap. I think it was yesterday or the day before I was watching her video on this, where the police they have a video of Chad in the backseat of the cop car talking to his daughter Emma. And she highlights and touches on a lot of really key points of this trial. So if you haven't seen that, she just posted it within the last couple of days. Go and watch Linda with It's a Crime and watch her video on that. That was really interesting, But I do have to say, because I'm not sure if she finally got it figured out, because when he's talking in the back of the car, he's talking about luminol and Emma moving into the house. Now, a lot of people think Chad is saying, I don't think they're going to luminol it all, meaning they're not going to luminol the entire house so she can come in. That's not what Chad says. He says, I don't think they're going to luminol at all in the house. So she should feel free to come in because they're not going to spray luminol everywhere. And that's a huge difference. That one word is a big difference. It all versus at all. So he clearly says at all, so Emma can go ahead and move in because she doesn't have to worry about them coming in and spraying the house. So yeah, that's the one thing I did want to set straight. But other than that, I'll keep you guys informed, and we'll see where this trial takes us, because I don't envy that jury at all. So anyway, hope you guys are having a great day. Oh yeah, it's Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day to all you moms out there. Hope you guys are having a great day, and go do something fun. Maybe watch this video. Oh, it's too late. By the time you get here, you've already watched it. But I hope you guys all had a great day, had a great Mother's Day, and we will catch you guys the next time.